Clara Bennett had chosen the house because it was quiet. It sat on a tree-lined street in Portland, Oregon, with soft gray siding and tall windows that let in pale morning light. After a broken engagement that ended with more silence than answers, she needed a place where nothing would surprise her. She worked from home as a book editor, spending her days fixing other people's love stories while quietly trying to forget her own. The house felt steady, predictable, safe. Then Daniel Harper answered her ad for the upstairs room. He arrived on a Sunday afternoon with 2 suitcases, a calm voice, and tired eyes. He worked as a paramedic, he explained, mostly night shifts. He needed a quiet place close to downtown. Clara studied him carefully before agreeing. He seemed respectful, grounded, not the kind of man who would bring chaos into her carefully rebuilt life. The first week passed politely. Short greetings in the kitchen, soft footsteps on the stairs. Daniel left early. Clara worked late, moved around, each other like careful strangers, both guarding their own history. But small moments began to change things. One evening, Clara burned a pan while distracted by a manuscript. The smoke alarm shrieked through the house. Daniel rushed downstairs, still in his work jacket, and opened windows without asking questions. He didn't tease her, he didn't judge. He simply fixed the problem and gave her a small smile. "Editing emergency?" he asked. She nodded, embarrassed. He just said, "Happens," and went back upstairs. Another night, Daniel returned from a long shift looking drained. Clara noticed the way he leaned against the counter, eyes closed for just a second too long. Without making it awkward, she placed a bowl of homemade soup on the table. "There's extra," she said simply. He looked surprised. "Thank you." After that, their conversations grew longer. They talked about simple things at first: music, favorite cities, childhood memories. Clara learned that Daniel had once planned to move to Chicago for someone he loved. The relationship didn't survive the distance. He learned that Clara had planned a wedding that never happened. Neither of them shared every detail. They didn't need to. The understanding was there. Still, they kept boundaries. They were adults. They knew how quickly feelings could grow when 2 lonely people shared a space. But the house began to feel different. Clara noticed the sound of Daniel's laughter more than she expected. It was warm and honest. Daniel started timing his coffee, breaks around her mornings in the kitchen. They never admitted it, but they were looking forward to seeing each other. Weeks turned into months. Autumn settled over the city. Rain tapped softly against the windows most evenings. Clara found comfort in the steady rhythm of it. She would sit at the dining table with her laptop, editing stories about brave heroes and second chances while Daniel's footsteps moved overhead. Sometimes he would come downstairs late at night, unable to sleep after a hard shift. He would sit across from her with a mug of tea. They didn't always talk. Sometimes they just existed in the same quiet space. Was peaceful, too peaceful. Because underneath the calm was something neither of them dared to name. The first real shift happened on a Friday evening. Clara had just finished a long phone call with a difficult client. Her voice sounded steady during the call, but when she hung up, her hands trembled. Editing other people's words was easy. Facing her own feelings was not. Daniel walked in as she stared blankly at the dark window. "You okay?" he asked. She hesitated. Normally she would say yes. Tonight she didn't. "Just tired," she admitted. He pulled out a chair and sat down. "You don't always have to be strong." The words caught her off guard. She looked at him carefully, unsure how much he could see. "I'm not trying to be strong," she said quietly. "I just don't want to fall apart again." Daniel understood more than she realized. "Falling apart doesn't mean you failed," he said. "Sometimes it just means you cared." Silence followed. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt honest. From that night on, something invisible between them began to thin. They started cooking dinner together once a week. It's nothing fancy: pasta, Grilled chicken, simple meals. They laughed over small mistakes. Daniel teased her about measuring spices too carefully. Clara teased him about cutting vegetables unevenly. One Sunday afternoon, they cleaned the yard together. Fallen leaves covered the grass. At one point, Daniel brushed a leaf from her hair without thinking. His fingers paused near her temple. She felt it, he felt it. Neither of them stepped back immediately. But they did step back eventually, because they were careful, because they were afraid. November arrived with colder air and heavier skies. Clara noticed how the evenings felt longer. She also noticed how often her thoughts drifted upstairs when Daniel wasn't home. One evening, she heard him on the phone in his room. His voice was gentle but distant. When he came downstairs later, she couldn't help asking, "Everything?" "Okay, just an old friend," he replied. She nodded, pretending it didn't matter. But a strange ache formed in her chest. The realization unsettled her. She cared, more than she should. That night, she lay awake listening to rain against the roof. She wondered if sharing a house with him had been a mistake. Feelings were complicated. Living together made them even more so. Daniel was fighting his own thoughts. He had promised himself not to mix home with emotion. He valued the peace in that house. He didn't want to risk losing it. But when he imagined Clara leaving, the thought felt worse than the risk. The storm came on a Tuesday night. It started with distant thunder while Clara was finishing dinner. The wind picked up quickly, rattling the windows. Daniel was upstairs changing. Out of his uniform, the sky darkened earlier than usual, clouds thick and heavy. A sharp crack of thunder shook the house. Clara froze mid-step. The lights flickered once, then again, and went out completely. The house fell into darkness so sudden it felt unreal. Only the faint outline of trees outside showed through the windows. Clara's breath quickened. She wasn't afraid of storms, but the silence that followed felt heavy. She heard footsteps on the stairs. Clara. Daniel's voice called gently. "I'm here," she answered. He found her in the kitchen, both of them adjusting to the dark. For a second, neither spoke. The world outside roared with wind and rain. "I'll grab candles," he said. He moved through the house confidently, returning with 3 small candles and a lighter. When the flames came alive, the kitchen filled with soft golden light. Shadows danced along the walls. The storm outside felt distant but powerful. They sat across from each other at the table. It felt different than any evening before. No phones, no television, no distractions. It's just the sound of rain and their steady breathing. You ever feel like storms make everything honest? Clara asked suddenly. Daniel studied her face in the flickering light. "How do you mean?" "Like they strip away noise," she said. "All you're left with is what's real." He didn't look away. "And what's real?" The question lingered between them. Clara's heart pounded. She hadn't planned to say anything, but the darkness gave her courage. "I'm tired of pretending this is just convenient," she admitted softly. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "You think? I'm pretending I don't know," she whispered. "Are you?" Thunder rolled loudly overhead, shaking the windows again. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I think about you more than I should," he said plainly. "I wait for you in the mornings. I listen for you at night. That's not convenience." Her breath caught. The storm intensified. Rain slamming against the glass. "I don't want to lose this house," Clara said. "Or the peace." "You won't," he replied. "But we can't ignore what's happening." A loud crash echoed outside. Both of them jumped. Daniel stood quickly. "Stay here, I'll check." As he moved toward the door, Clara felt something shift deep inside her. The fear wasn't about the storm. It was about how much she suddenly didn't want to imagine life without him. The door opened. Wind rushed in, carrying cold rain with it. Daniel stepped into the storm. Clara stood frozen in the candlelight, listening to the door close behind him. The house felt quiet again, but it was no longer the same quiet as before. Daniel stepped into the storm without hesitation. Rain hit his face hard, cold and sharp. The wind pushed against him as he moved down the porch steps. A large pine branch had fallen against the side of the house, scraping the wall and blocking. Part of the walkway, it looked worse than it was. He grabbed it with both hands and dragged it across the wet grass, his shoes sinking slightly into the mud. Thunder rolled above him, loud but already moving farther away. Inside, Clara stood near the front window, her hands pressed together tightly. She could barely see through the sheets of rain, only the faint shape of Daniel moving in the dark. Her heart beat faster than it should. She told herself he was fine. He was used to chaos. He worked in emergencies every day. But that was exactly what scared her. He was always the one running into storms while others stayed safe. When he finally turned back toward the house, soaked and breathing hard, relief washed over her so quickly it almost made her dizzy. The door opened, bringing a rush of cold air. Inside, Daniel stepped in and shut it behind him. Water dripped from his jacket onto the wooden floor. "It's just a branch," he said, pushing wet hair off his forehead. "No real damage." Clara let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "You scared me." He blinked, surprised. "I was gone 2 minutes. That was enough." The words hung between them, honest, unplanned. He studied her face. The candlelight made her eyes shine, not from fear now, but from something deeper. "I'm okay," he said more gently. She stepped closer without thinking. "You don't always have to be the strong one." Daniel gave a small half-smile. "Kinda comes with the job." "I know," she replied. "But when you walked out there, I realized something." The lights flickered suddenly. Both of them looked up as electricity hummed back through the house. The kitchen filled with bright light, the refrigerator beeped. The clock blinked back to life. The storm was already weakening, but something had shifted in the space between them. Clara didn't step away when the lights came on. She didn't pretend the moment was over. "What did you realize?" Daniel asked quietly. She swallowed. Her heart pounded, but she didn't want to hide anymore. "I realized I don't want you to leave." His expression changed. Not surprise, not confusion, something softer. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "That's not what I mean," she replied. "I don't want you to leave this house because things get complicated. I don't want to wake up one morning and feel that empty space again." Daniel understood. He had felt it too. That space after someone leaves. The silence that follows. The way normal rooms suddenly feel too large. He stepped closer. "Clara, look at me." She lifted her eyes slowly. "I've been careful," he admitted. "I told myself we were just roommates. I didn't want to risk this." "Risk what?" she asked. "Losing you," he answered honestly. The truth hit her hard. She hadn't expected him to say it so clearly. "You could never lose me like that," she said. "Not if we're both trying." He searched her face for doubt and found none. For months, they had been circling around the same feeling. Late night talks, shared dinners, quiet glances across the kitchen. The storm had only stripped away the last layer of fear. "I don't want this to be a reaction to the storm," Daniel said. "I don't want us to think it's just the mood or the dark." "It's not," Clara replied quickly. "I felt it for weeks." He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "Good, because so have I." They stood in the middle of the kitchen, the candles still burning though the lights were back. Rain tapped more softly against the windows now. Daniel reached Eve up slowly, giving her time to step back if she needed to. She didn't. He brushed a damp strand of hair away from her cheek. His hand lingered for a second, careful and respectful. "I don't want to rush you," he said. "We live together. That matters. We need to be smart." "I know," she answered. "But being careful hasn't made the feelings go away." That was true. If anything, being careful had made them stronger. He smiled slightly. "You're braver than you think." "No," she said, shaking her head. I'm just tired of being afraid." The storm outside faded into distant rumbling. The world felt calm again. Daniel made a quiet decision in that moment. He wasn't going to walk away because it was easier. He had done that once before in his life, letting distance slowly end something meaningful. He wouldn't repeat that mistake. "We can take this slow," he said. "We can figure it out day by day." Clara nodded. "I don't need big promises. I just need honesty." "You have it," he replied. The power was back. The storm was almost gone, yet neither of them moved. Clara stepped forward first. She rested her forehead gently against his chest. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It was simple and real. Daniel wrapped his arms around her carefully, like he understood how much trust she was offering. He didn't hold her too tight. He just held her enough for her to feel steady. For the first time in a long while, Clara's thoughts were quiet. No fear about tomorrow, no replaying old heartbreaks. Just the warmth of someone choosing to stay. After a moment, she pulled back. Slightly. "What happens now?" He smiled. "Now we clean up the water on the floor before it ruins the wood." She laughed, the sound light and free. It felt good to laugh after such a heavy moment. They grabbed towels together, wiping up the rain Daniel had tracked inside. The simple act felt strangely meaningful. They weren't just sharing a house anymore. They were choosing to share something deeper. When the kitchen was dry, Daniel changed into a clean shirt and came back downstairs. Clara had blown out the candles, but she left one burning on the table, just in case. She said he sat across from her again like they had earlier that night. But this time, the air felt different. "Open? Are you scared?" he asked gently. "A little," she admitted. "But it's not the kind of fear that makes me want to run. That's a good sign." She studied him for a long second. "You?" "Yeah," he said honestly. "But I think some risks are worth it." The rain slowed to a soft drizzle. The storm clouds began to drift away, leaving the night calm and clear. Clara felt something settle inside her. Not excitement, not nerves. Something steadier. Hope. Double quotes. "Do you ever think," she asked softly, "that maybe we ended up here for a reason?" Daniel looked around the kitchen, the old cabinets, the warm light, the quiet after chaos. "Yeah," he said. "I think we did." They didn't need grand gestures. They didn't need dramatic speeches. They just needed that moment of clarity. Clara reached across the table and took his hand. Not because she was afraid, but because she wanted to. He held it firmly, steady and warm. Outside, the storm had fully passed. The streetlights reflected off wet pavement. The world looked washed clean. Inside the quiet house. Nothing was broken, but everything had changed. And this time, the silence between them was no longer empty. It was full of promise.